Well, I'm delighted, fighter fans, to introduce to you today on this episode, for me personally, an absolute hero, an unsung hero of the sport of boxing. I'd like to introduce Tony Davis onto the show today for what I believe is going to be a fantastic interview and a real insight into the grassroots of the sport. And Tony, first of all, I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy man. I know you've been through quite a lot recently, as we'll discuss through the episode. But again, thank you for coming on today.
Thanks very much. It's, like I say, a pleasure to be here, and yeah, very much looking forward to speaking to you.
So there's a lot to go through with your journey through boxing. There's so many things that I want to talk about with you, but I think it's only right for the benefit of people that have not heard your story before that we take it right back to the beginning. And I suppose you're telling me and the listeners like what it actually was that got you involved first and foremost in the sport.
Well, I don't know if this will resonate with anyone, but I was actually forced into the sport in a way. I was just a young little sort of wheedling at school, and anyone that came near me, I would what I call adopt the hedgehog, just lie on the floor and cover up in a ball. So I couldn't never, in you know, defend myself or anything like that. So I think it was at the age of 11, my stepdad. Uh, he was a bit brutal, to be honest. He was brought up by the nuns, and sort of that sort of transferred over to us. But he got me into boxing, and it was back many years ago. I'm not too sure if you were actually born, but it was 1986, and it was a place called Gateshead, and the club was called Lobley Hill Amateur Boxing Club. And he took me through the training. The gym was a concert hall of a working men's social club, actually Lobley Hills Working Men's Social Club, like a lot of gyms probably in that time. And he got me into it, and I sort of wasn't really interested initially, but then I sort of picked up the skills, and I found like I was okay. And you know, but that's basically how I got into it. And it is, I think it was a couple of months before my 12th birthday, I had my first bout, and the nerves and everything like that. But I did fantastic. I won my first three bouts and stuff like that. So that's how I really got into the sport.
What was it like then when you was involved in the sport at that period of time during the mid to late 80s? Obviously, I know it's different, a lot different than what it was then. So could you explain like how the differences are from the late 80s, early 90s to what it's like and the way it's set up today?
I would say, now, because obviously everything evolves really, and I would say the sport as a whole, really, in terms of, when we used to spar there, you never really used to spar with head guards on and stuff like that. It was like, well, we didn't actually box with head guards on, competition wise, but it was, yeah, it was strange in terms of how I see now, especially as a coach, looking back there. But for me, it was just like a routine type of thing. You would get up in the morning, you go to school, and then it was sort of, come back, have a bowl of cereal, and then you were off to the club to train. But for me, I had I had six bouts for Lobley Hill as a young kid, and then my stepdad, thinking he could do this, that, and the other, he transformed, removed clubs, and we went to an old miners' hall called Marley Hill, and that was just brutal. And you talk about safety and the amount of sparring you should do, especially as a young kid. That was like that was really tough, and you were put in with anyone. There was no sort of like progression. It was just like survivor mode. But then my stepdad thought he could go alone, and then he set his own gym up, which became the team's amateur boxing club in Gateshead. And what happened there though was me and my brothers were sort of our workload sort of went up. So we came in from school with a bowl of cereal, and then we'd go down to the gym. We'd have to carry the gloves. We'd have to set the whole gym up because it was a youth club. This part, so you'd only have the venue for a short period of time, and then you'd have to take it down after you've trained. So and then it was like straight to bed and repeat. So it was kind of brutal back in them sort of those years. But like I say, you were going in and out of social clubs, boxing. People were smoking back then. You wanted to be on early because there wouldn't be too much smoke in the sort of environment. You should, look forward to your pie and peas meal or your little bag of thing when you boxed. Yeah, it was pretty strange compared to what it is now. But great
So,
memories.
so how often did you compete, and how many bouts were you involved in as an amateur yourself?
So I had basically I'd box as much as I could. I was always in the gym. I was always fit. Uh, but our life was boxing. So as you start coming out of your schoolboy and then entering your junior ages, then you start hitting puberty and all the rest of it, and all your friends and your school friends are like out courting and knocking about together. That wasn't our life. My life was, because I was the eldest out of seven, you see, and especially with four of the brothers. But our life was the gym Monday to Friday and a Sunday morning. And what we'd have to do though on a Friday, Saturday, and sometimes Sunday evening, we'd have to go out in the minibus and collect money. It wasn't a thing I wanted to do, but we have to go around all the pubs and clubs and collect money for the boxing club. And that was kind of brutal. It wasn't by choice. It was this is what you're doing. And my stepdad was a little, he was pretty, brutal. I mean, obviously going a bit too personal here, but it just gives people an idea, because I'm sure some people would have come from similar backgrounds. But say I'd go and box, and I wasn't anything special. I was a 5.5 stone kid boxing in the ring, and if I didn't do well enough, and my stepdad had a few pints, I'd be in for another competition when I got back home, and that was only one-sided, and then that happened many a times. But like I said, you grew and you were like sort of forced into it, in a way, and then so you just did it because that's the only thing you knew. But then my brothers start coming into it. Then you start having a little bit of success, and then you start winning area championships, Northeast, and then venturing down to Yorkshire, and then hitting a brick wall type thing. Because in my weight division, in my age group, was you'd sort of be looking at Prince Nazim, who was 45 kilos at the time, boxing in schoolboy championships, and then juniors. So yeah, for me as a kid, I never got out of the Northeast. I'd win the Northeast, but then I'd go down to Yorkshire, but I wouldn't get any further, So, and you look at, I think my brother went and reached the national final, I think as a junior. So, yeah, like I said, I'm sure a lot of people would have come from them sort of eras back in the sort of late 80s.
Was there ever any intention at any point to consider turning professional, because of the fact that you said, like, the sport was kind of forced upon you in a way where I can imagine at times there must have been times where you must have been feeling like, why am I doing this? Or am I wrong in saying that? Was there aspects of it that was kind of an escape from reality?
No, not really, because there was a few chapters that I had to cross before I ever even considered that. But one thing that did cross my mind, that the amount of time that I'd spent in the gym, obviously it did pay off, because I remember having my first senior bout. I mean, I was 17 years of age, and I remember boxing at a place called the Shack in Bolden, and I met this. When you turned 17 back in those days, you automatically became a senior. So you could box anyone, any age. I think it was up to 36, I think, back in those days. Now it's 40. But and I boxed this kid from Bilton Hall, Mark Guy, I think his name was. And this kid was 26. And to me, I was just like a beanpole, I think I was about at that point, 63 kilos, something like that. Maybe he's a bit less. But he had all tattoos on. I still look young as hell. But I just got in there, and I just schooled him, just the boxing ability, it was like night and day. And this kid had been in ABAs and everything and had a good reputation, so it was a pretty good scalp for me. But what I wanted was, that's why professional never ever entered my mind. I wanted to get away from home. That's all I wanted. I wanted a bit of stability, because even when I was at school, I'd do a bit of school, and I'm sure a lot of other kids came from the similar, sort of upbringings, where I'd be in class, and I'd be around friends and stuff like that. Then I'd get a call saying, "Tony, the head teacher needs to see you." Oh, bloody hell, what have I done now? And I wasn't a bad kid at school, you know what I mean? I was even bullied at some points. But I'd go there, and I'd see my mum crying, surrounded by social workers. So we off carted to the next refuge. That was the sort of upbringing, we had in a way. So all I wanted to do was get away from home, and I wanted to join the army. And but when that point came of signing me letters and reaching a certain age, I went through to it was in Newcastle careers office, and I couldn't pass the medical, because I was so, I hadn't really fully developed into a young man. I was still like, maybe it was like, I don't know, the nutrition I had, the lifestyle, keeping the weight whilst you were boxing, things like that played a role. And I remember just crying my eyes out, because I knew I had to go back to the same old routine, even at that age, 16 and a half, going down the gym, setting everything up, going out every weekend, collecting money. It was like, that was it. I had to go back to that for a bit. So yeah, considering turning professional never really entered my mind back then.
So you mentioned obviously the army, and eventually that would be the escape that you was looking for, that you was craving for, and getting away from that routine, as you mentioned. And obviously you did spend a long time in the army, but just talk me through like what the experiences were like, and what you actually did, and how you sort of progressed your way through the ranks in the army, and just the general experience for people that maybe have not had any experience or any sort of exposure to what it is like to be in the armed forces.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I went back and passed my medical, and then I had to go back another day to sign my oath of allegiance to the Queen, and then you get like a day's money. It felt like, it felt really special, because I had to sit in front of an officer, and it felt like, oh, great. And then fast forward, you're on the train down to London, and you have to get it, because I did my basic training down in Basenbourne, which is near Cambridge, back in 91, August 91 it was. In fact, the 17th of August 1991, I first went there. And it was like just an adventure initially. And then you start making instant friendships. And then for 21 weeks, shacked together, it was just great. But it was just like learning new skills, learning how to carry a weapon, learning how to march, learning how, so many different skills. And it was exciting, And the fact was that you were getting paid for it as well, So it was like a lease of life, especially from what I'd been through. And I'm sure a lot of other guys that joined the army came from similar backgrounds, if not worse. But it was just great. So I went through my, 21 weeks of training, but for some reason I don't have a lot of luck, although I do have some luck as well. On the 20th week, what we do is we carry out a final exercise, and that's just to confirm that, okay, he's a good enough soldier, he can go and join the regular army now, and join his unit wherever it was going to be. Unfortunately, I contracted bacterial meningitis.
Wow.
So what happened was I came back for final exercise, and I was nominated to escort the bus driver back to the front gate and then walk back. As I was walking back, I just felt really ill, really ill. Severe duns in my whole body, that's all I remembered. Anyway, when you get back off exercise, all your kit is in turmoil. You have to do what's called personal administration. Get all your kit sorted out, because you're going to be inspected the next morning. All I did was get into bed, because I was shivering, I had a temperature, I think. And my mates and that were going, what are you doing? If the corporal comes in, you're going to get beasted. You'll get us all beasted. I couldn't do anything. Anyway, long one short, I was taken straight to the medical centre the next morning. I was in the medical centre for 3 days. The colonel, who's like the senior medical officer, they didn't even know what was the matter with me until I started fitting. then I quickly assumed that I had to get rushed to the nearest hospital, and it turned out I had bacterial meningitis. So anyway, managed to get through that. And bacteria is quite, it's quite a bad illness, isn't it? And I couldn't remember much of it, but apparently my platoon commander come and brought me best at PT, best at physical training tankard, because I was the best at PT in my platoon. But because on the last week you're supposed to do lots of drill and do your pass off parade. Well, obviously I was seriously ill in hospital, and like I say, so I missed my pass off parade. So what happened then after was after about 4 weeks sick leave, I was then brought back, and then I had to do some gradual return to training because I was posted to Northern Ireland. So this is now 92, beginning 92. So I've always wanted to be a physical training instructor. So what they did was they subcontracted me to the gym for like 3 days a week, and that helped the PTIs. Now, once my fitness became back, because I kind of got back quite fit quite quickly, and I started going out with runs and understand how they do things and stuff like that, and I loved it. And I spent about 4 months there, and then before being carted off to Northern Ireland, obviously going through the bacterial meningitis, there was many tests I had to go through in central London, and all I wanted to know was, could I box again? Like I say, I think I'd only boxed probably a year before that or something, and that's all I wanted to do. So when I got posted to Northern Ireland, I got the all clear. I could box again. So I remember going on me because when I got posted, I hadn't turned 18 yet, so I had to go to what was called Care Bears platoon, which is because you're under the age, you're not allowed on the streets until you're 18. So you stay in this holding platoon, and then you have to do some things and stuff like that, extra training. And then when I turned 18, I was posted to a platoon, and I was straight out on the streets down in sort of South Armagh, place called Newry. And I just had this thing. Throughout my life, I just seemed I need things to focus on. And I just said to my family back home, can I box when I come back home and leave? So that's what I've done. So in between patrolling around the streets and that, you're in a big RUC station, it's PSNI now, but used to be RUC back then, Royal Ulster Constabulary. So I'd do my own training, in the sort of compound with a view on boxing, and that's essentially what I did. So that was my route sort of back in boxing. I did that, and then I came back and I got a letter which was sent to the commanding officer being selected for the Army boxing team. So what happened was I sort of left Northern Ireland, went to Aldershot because that was the home of Army boxing then. Mick Gannon was the coach at the time. Not too sure if you've heard of his name. He's been an England coach and all the rest of it. So I'm knocking about 67 kilos, 68 kilos at this point. Because like I said, I was a late developer, and I had a growth spurt probably after I left the Army team. But the number one in the Army boxing team was none other than Chris Bessie, MBE. I think he massed 6 ABA titles. I think one less than John Lyon. He's a good friend, Chris, still to this day. And I remember sparring with him, and I was just, he was a southpaw, he was just bamboozled. So that was like my first sort of introduction to the Army boxing team. But it was like an honour. It was probably the closest thing of representing your country in a way, representing the British Army and stuff like that. So I spent one season there, and sort of, just to be honest, I mean, I was obviously 18 then. I never even drank. I'd never had any of the social life, like especially with the opposite sex and stuff like that. So, I missed out on a lot. So I think, I went back to Northern Ireland, and because you were paid a little bit more extra, the sort of Army team sort of dwindled. I sort of wasn't interested in boxing anymore. I was interested in being among me muckers, and like we experienced a few bad things out in Northern Ireland where we lost, 1 or 2 people, and and that's sort of what got me into, sort of got me to taste what alcohol was about, because you were all part of lots of group cohesion, and when things happened, we were brought off the streets. There was nothing else to do other than, you know, have a pint with one another. So that became the norm. And I went through my army career for the sort of next 6-7 years like that. You know, we left Northern Ireland. We went to a place called Chester. We moved from Chester. We went to Germany. From Germany, we went done a 6 month tour in Bosnia. From there, I went back to Northern Ireland and Londonderry, and stuff like that. And I think after 8.5 years, I thought, you know, I need a change. I need to do something. And you know, but just before that, just before I left the army, I hadn't boxed for about, I think, 7 years, and I just thought I got my first taste of coaching, and it was when I was in Londonderry, and this regimental sergeant major, he kind of took a shine to me, and he was going, "Look, you used to box. Why don't you coach the team and stuff like that?" I mean, I didn't know anything about coaching really, so I just utilised my experience what I went through, and the guys did okay. But there was one guy in particular called Fergie, Dave Ferguson. You'll probably remember him. I think he won one of the prize fighters at heavyweight. He's a big, tall guy from Newcastle, Fergie. Well, he was an 81 kilo kid then, and obviously I had a bit of a growth spurt, and that was sort of my weight. So I used to do a bit of sparring with him, even though I was the coach, because there was no one else to spar with. And I sort of brought him on a little bit. Anyway, this gave me the bug. So I thought, once the coaching had done, I'd entered myself into the Army Boxing Championships, and I just went across there on my own. A guy called Vinnie Powell and Chris Bessie done my corner for me, and you know, and I went in. I had 3 bouts over 3 days and stopped them all. And then I was asked to rejoin the army team, but I just didn't fancy it, you know. And then I was still in Northern Ireland, and this Irish guy said to me, "Listen, why don't you enter the Ulsters? You'd be good enough." So what happened was, not thinking straight and probably easily led a little bit back then, I entered the Ulster Championships, which was in obviously Belfast. I was still a serving soldier, you know, from stationed in Londonderry. But what happened was I went to go and train at a place called Monkstown, which is North Belfast, and I did some training there. And the championships were taking place in this place called the Dockers Club. But for us, it was a red area, so I shouldn't have been there really. But for some reason or other, I think the Irish sort of put all politics aside when there's sport involved. I do believe there's 1 or 2 people in there knew I was a British soldier, but I ended up boxing with an Island vest on, and I ended up boxing against a kid from Newry, so which was unbelievable. And it was I think, yeah, it was 4-2s back in them days, and I was 2 points up or something going into the last round, and I blew a gasket, you know, and the kid ended up beating me 15-13 it was. And so that was me sort of taste back into boxing in a way. And then what happened was, when we left Londonderry, we went to a place called Stamford, and I sort of thought it was time to leave the army. So I left the army. I thought I'll just sample what it's like in Civvy Street, you know, try and even mature a little bit, because in the army you're still surrounded in a little sort of bubble, you know, and it's all fun and games. But I thought it's time I had to stand on my own 2 feet. So I got out, got myself a flat, and I went to a place called Bertley, and I knew the coach there called Ronnie Rowe from Bertley, because me, you know, we used to have good links with the teams. My stepdad knew them and that. But I just went there with the option of just like giving a hand, you know, helping the kids. I think I was about 26 at this point, and so I went there, even paying at the gym. We used to train in an old fire station, and Ronnie's like quickly become, you know, like such a great guy, and he ended up becoming like a father figure to me. You know, he was like the closest person, and well, he could have replaced the real person 50 times over. And you know, I was coaching the kids and that, and after a good few months, he says, "Do you know what, Tony? I think you've got a little bit left in you." So what do you mean? He goes, "No, you should box again." I went, "I'm not really, you know," but he sort of, you know, persuaded me to do it. He goes, "Look, we've got a home show on next month or the month after, whatever it was." He says, "We've got a team from Sweden coming over." Anyway, lo and behold, I matched up with this kid, 81 kilos from Sweden. Turns out he's the national champion of Sweden. Saeed El Tahad or something his name was, and I ended up boxing him, and yeah, I'd done all right. I beat him on points, and that was me sort of like real, got the taste for it back now, and because I'd won, created a bit of confidence and all the rest of it, and then I sort of like got into it, and then we ended up going in the ABAs. I got to the quarterfinals, ended up getting beat off this kid from Pinewood Star called Sam Price, I think his name was, yeah, traveling kid. I think he turned pro after that and stuff. But then I came back. I think, in fact, I was just approaching 26, something like that. And I'd went out for me to celebrate my birthday in Newcastle. And I was living in a place called Chesley Street at the time, which is just next to Burtley. And Burtley's obviously, for those that are viewing this, is it just sits right underneath the Angel of the North. Yeah. And anyway, I went out to celebrate, went to Newcastle. I came back to me sort of home place for a late drink, and I ended up getting the wrong side of a situation, and I was surrounded by 5 or 6 guys, and basically ended up getting my jaw broken in 3 places. So I remember being back home, and now my wife saying, just start screaming. So I got to the hospital, and yeah, my jaw was broken in 3 places. So that took a bit of time and stuff to get through, and I ended up coming back to boxing. And I mean, it's an awful sort of, because your jaw's all wired up and everything. Just taking them out is a nightmare. But anyway, I ended up boxing again in the same sort of venue against a team from Ireland, and I won that. I won that bout, and I was okay. The first thing Ronnie said to me was, "How's your jaw?" I said, "Nah, it's fine." And I remember him because he wasn't too happy with me, because it was just before. I think it was just after 9/11 happened, and you were supposed to box in the strip, the team strip, Burtley. And I had these shorts, Stars and Stripes, because I'm always a bit like that, wanting to try and replicate, maybe, or just show like a bit of feeling, like you're supporting sort of people when events like that happen. So I quickly whipped these Stars and Stripes shorts on. The last time I seen things like that was when Rocky Balboa had them on against Ivan Drago. So I whipped them on, and he was like looking at me, but we're on the way to the ring at this point. So I managed to box in them and stuff like that, and yeah, won that bout. And then what happened after that? So what happened after that? I was working in a sort of not a great job in this chemical factory. It was just boring and tedious and stuff like that. So what I used to do is get up in the morning, do my road work in the morning, and then I'd do my day's work, and then I'd go home, just like old, probably have a bowl of cereal, and then I'd be on my way back to Burtley to the gym and do the session. And this one particular time, I was supposed to box in a local show, a place called Spennymoor, against this kid from Spennymoor, actually. And apparently he was up and coming. And then I'm at work. I decided I was going to leave a bit earlier so I can get prepared and stuff like that. I get a phone call off Ronnie. He's going, "Tony, listen, you're not boxing, son." I said, "What do you mean?" Because they've decided to take a Welsh kid, because they're bringing the Welsh team up. And I'm like, "Oh, you're joking." He's going, "But look, the England team are up, and Peter Lee." He says, "They're up training," stuff like that. He says, "So the ones from sparring partners." So I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll go." So what happened was, me, Gary Barr, I think one other kid came across. I went straight in. It was pretty hell, train with the England team. Oh, this is like great, First person I seen, David here. It's like, bloody hell. And then what happened was the light heavy Courtney Fry, he was out for some reason, and then it quickly dawned that he was out of pleurisy, so he wasn't fit. I didn't have a clue what they were training for, what they were up for, anything like that. So what they said was, "Look, can you go with David here, do some technical stuff?" So I just did some technical stuff like that, and I sort of got on great with him, right from the start. And what they said, but just did technical stuff, technical sparring, and they said, "Oh, just me, can I come back the next day?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." So I came back. Ronnie picks me up, takes me. And then we're there doing some other stuff and this, that, and the other. And then we got this, right to the meat of the bones, open sparring in the afternoon. Well, I'm just looking in the ring, and I just see this guy called Carl Dukes, he was a big figure from the northeast. He was from Sunderland, and as a young kid, I used to watch him box in what was called the George Wimby ABAs, and he used to be in some very fantastic fights, bouts. And so I seen him, and he, David Hare was just punching hell out of him, and I'm thinking, I'm in next. I'm like that. So, the old adrenaline's like just going through the roof. But I was pretty okay on my feet. And I used my feet when I got in there and stuff like that. And I did okay against David here, And so that went well. And they said, can you come back the next day, which was the Sunday? So I said, yeah, no problem. So I went back there. More technical stuff with David here. And David here goes, you should go in the ABAs, you'd win them. So that's straight away I start feeling with confidence and all that. But we start continue with the technical. And I think he just thought, I'll just let this kid know I'm still here. Because I'm like that. And he just whips a body shot in, and it nearly falls me in half. But when you take a shot, I think just the proudness of you don't want to fold in half, you know what I mean? But you can see he's proper got me. So I was just like, Warren, I says, okay, you got me there. And we just carried on. It was great. So at the end of the England camp, they said, right, just keep yourself active, I didn't know what to take from that. A few days later, I think it was, so that was on the Sunday. On the Tuesday, gets a phone call off Ronnie. He says, Tony, you've just been selected to box for England against the USA. I went, you what? Because, he says, obviously, Coney Fry's out, the light heavy. Well, I didn't really know at this point. He goes, so you're going to be boxing down in the London Hilton Park Lane on Sky Sports, representing England. It was like a dream, really. And because that's probably like one of your proudest moments. Even now as a coach, I always tell the kids, I say, look, pulling on that vest, representing your country is such a true, not everyone gets this opportunity. So just to put that vest on was just like amazing. We went down to Crystal Palace like the weekend before, and we sort of did the weigh-in, got bused to Park Lane in London, and so I couldn't see David here. And obviously I did a bit of research, and I found out he just won a silver medal in the Worlds in Belfast, 2001. He nearly beat the Cuban and everything like that. And he had his own changing room, So it was crazy. And I only seen him when we got in the ring to do the ring parade, stood shoulder to shoulder. And it was just a great, a great event. But just before, as we did some interviews and stuff like that, which was great with Adam Smith. And I remember him asking a question. He says, so what did you do for them 6 or 7 years you were out of boxing? Well, I'm a great Oasis fan, you see. And I said, well, I travelled the world watching Oasis whilst I was in the army. And he mentions it when I'm boxing on the old thing, on the old commentary. But what happened was there was a guy called Steve Birch, a great boxer, multi-talented. He told me about an hour before I was boxing. He goes, yeah, the kid you're boxing, the Yank. He goes, he beat David Hay on this show 2 years ago. Well, you can imagine now what what I feel like now. So I'm like, oh, really? But what had happened was he tried to bang him out and blow a gasket type thing, and ended up getting beat on points. But I'm still in this head, bloody hell, he's beat David Hay. I wonder if he's a puncher, if it's that. But I just stuck to me game plan, boxing, and I beat the kid 13-5. It was a great England debut, And I remember the kids, like the other team members, going, oh, you'll get on funded now. What that meant was become a regular England international. But what happened after that, any England camp, I always attended, And then during that time, it was 2002, I entered the ABAs and ended up becoming ABA champion. which took place in Barnsley, Metrodome 2002. And there was a lot riding on that, not particularly in my case, because Courtney Fry had already been selected for the Commonwealth Games in Manchester. But there was a lot of bouts there that were up for the likes of Paul Smith. You know, he won at 71 kilos, then he got selected. A few other guys, you know, trying to remember the guy from your neck of the woods, Andy Morris. He got selected when he won. You know, there was just a few, and it was a great event. And you know, I was just proud to win a. You know, never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd box for England and win, and also become maybe a champion. But what was best was a few weeks later we went to a place called Killarney in Ireland, which was the Four Nations, and I ended up winning the Four Nations as well. So that was sort of me sort of Burley career really, because what had happened was after I was out the army for about 2 years, 10 months, and you know, the work and stuff like that, it was too boring for me. It was, you know, even when you went out with your mates, it was like same old routine. You know, it was just boring, and I thought I needed a change. Plus, I miss my old army comrades and stuff like that, and you know, the excitement and everything like that. So, and it was Ronnie as well, and he goes, "Listen," he says, "I think you're making a good choice," and he helped me with it. So I actually rejoined the army in 2002, and you know, which was kind of strange, really. I mean, I could take you through the next episode of my army career if you wish, because it was quite exciting, really.
Yeah, I think you should share like that journey that you've been on, because you know, you've spoke about how you've been in the army, you've got that discipline, you've learned so much during the course of your time that you end up coming out and then you end up getting involved with obviously the representing England is a huge accolade, and then obviously winning tournaments on top of that. When if you think back to like earlier on before you joined the army, it was like, could you have ever envisaged that happening? You know, when they say hindsight is a wonderful thing, you can't even probably imagine that at that time when you was just about to join the army for the first time that you'd ever get to that point where you got to, and then like you've come away from it again and then gone back to the army once more, and you've obviously spent more time in the army. So yeah, absolutely. Talk us through them remaining years in the army, and then obviously the transition, because you made a huge transition from going from the army to then becoming a boxing coach yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I had obviously a taste of it. You know, initially when I was in sort of Londonderry, and then but it gave me that little bug back to actually compete again. You know, but so I rejoined the army. I think it was 17th of June, 2002, and my unit were posted in Germany. War Regiment of Fusiliers, and so I went back there. But I only went back there for 2 days, because the unit, I think they might have been in Iraq at this point, and you know, I must, you know, I've been quite fortunate in the army, you know, in terms of like I've been quite lucky to stay away from the likes of Iraq and Afghanistan. It was only like Northern Ireland and Bosnia that was the pretty hot spots for me. So, and what it was is because the army boxing team knew I was rejoining. So, you know, all I had to do was go to a place called Catterick, and I did 4 days of testing and breezed through that. Went straight to Germany, which was my parent unit. Stayed there for 2 days, and then I went straight to the army team. So during this point, the army team's been selected to help out at the 2002 Commonwealth Games in Manchester. I'm not too sure how far you're away from Wythenshawe, but that was where the preliminaries were taking place before they moved to the arena. And what happened was we helped out and stuff like that, and all it was meant, you know, sort of escorting the athletes to and from the ring with all their kit and stuff. But I made a point of doing it with Courtney Fry. So even though I wasn't selected, I had probably the best seat in the house to watch his performance. I carried his kit to the ring, I can't remember if he was first or second bout, but yeah, I think he ended up boxing an African kid, and he got beat, and I thought, oh, yeah, I could have done better. Like I guess anyone's sort of response would be. But what happened then was, went back to the army, started training with them. But I was also selected, with England, so I went on a lot of England camps. And then 2003, I went in the ABAs again, and I got to the ABA final, and it was sort of bittersweet for me because like I was a defending champion, and I was pitted against a young talented kid called James Boyd from Donington, and won numerous titles and stuff like that and whatever. And I was pitted against him, and I thought, all right, yeah, not man against boy, because I never belittle anyone anyway. Everyone's got two arms, two legs. Doesn't really matter how old you are, what shape or size you are. But one of the best things I'm being coached by the army coach now, Vinnie Powell, who I mentioned earlier on. He was the army coach at this point. But what did it for me was, like, I had Bertley in the corner standing in your call, where and they were really supporting me. But anyway, we had a real competitive bout, and ended up getting beat 2019. And I thought, yeah, but as a true sportsman, you got to take it on the chin. But luckily, when I say bittersweet, that was the bitter point. The sweet point was I was selected somehow to go to the Four Nations, which was being facilitated in Sophia Gardens in Cardiff that year. So I went there and ended up beating a Welshman, sort of convincingly on points. And then I went up against who's a good friend of mine now, and a legend in my eyes, Kenny Egan, who was obviously 2008 Olympic silver medalist, should have been gold medalist in my opinion. But went up and boxed him, and I end up, it was a real chess match because he was a southpaw and everything like that, and I ended up beating him 15-11 on points. And but one of the best things was, my wife came through, and we stayed in the bed and breakfast. What happened was, the last sort of shot, Kenny's elbow hit me on the eye, and it cut my eye, so I had to go to the hospital, get it glued. And I came back, and obviously, even in them days, you used to have a few beers after you boxed, and Kenny's at the bar, you know what I mean? And there was a teammate of mine, Lee Beavers, was sort of took my wife there and all that. So we just all got together, and a kid I'd just shared 4-2s with, and we sat at the bar having a beer and having a crack. It was just great. And then what happened to then? Straight after then, a few weeks later, we went and done a warm weather training camp in Cyprus, and then after that, I think I was selected to go to the Acropolis Cup in Greece, in Athens. I got a bronze medal there, but got beat just off a world number 3. And after that, we're in Crystal Palace. I think it was about the July time or something like that. There was myself, David Price, Darren Langley, Gary Sykes, Amir Khan, Darren Barker, Ricardo Sams. Those type of guys, we were selected by Terry Edwards, who was the national coach at this point, to form what was called the elite squad. So this is obviously 2003. So there was this elite squad, and it was a new thing because England boxing never had full time. It was either weekends or every other weekends. So the deal was that we train Monday to Thursday every week, probably in 4 different locations. One being Crystal Palace, the second being it used to be a place called in Salford. There used to be an old wrestling hall, and we used to share it with the wrestling. So half was boxing, half was wrestling. And then one in Sheffield, the England Institute of Sport, and Peterlee. So there were the 4 locations, and we'd had to go around, and then we'd obviously go to competitions and stuff like that. So you're a full-time athlete. I was obviously still a sovereign soldier, but I was subconduct to England boxing as a full-time athlete, and it just felt great. You were living in each other's pockets and stuff like that. And because what they said was, we just believe that yous have got the attributes, and we think that we can progress yous to be enable yous to qualify for Athens, which was 2004 Olympic Games. Obviously, we know Mia Khan was the only one that qualified out of our team, because qualifying was just really difficult. I mean, for me, I think I peaked a bit too early, because towards the end of 2003, we went to Tama tournament. It was probably my best ever sort of performance when in England vest. I ended up boxing 3 times in the Tama to win gold, but I beat the world #2 at the time, which guy called John Dovey from France. He now runs French boxing, so he'll be there at the Olympics and everything like that. And like I say, he's a good friend as well. I see him on the circuit. We get the odd picture together and stuff. But it's just great that sort of how you used to be opponents and now you're still involved in the sport. So I got gold then. Took us towards the end of the. I used to get cut a lot. You see as well. I don't know if it was the, because we used to wear head guards back then, and it was like, maybe the weight loss and you're a little bit thin around the sort of eye sockets type thing. I'm not too sure. And then we had like a sort of Christmas break, and then we went to a tournament in, well, it was a training camp initially, and then into a what was called a round robin, which formed the Adidas Box Gala. This took place in Germany. It was on the Polish border, actually. Frankfurt Oder was called, and it was Amir Khan's first sort of senior tournament. So we there in a camp and everything like that, doing the training. For me it wasn't too bad, because we're in an old army camp, but to some of the lads it was, this isn't luxury, this isn't, but I was used to that type of thing. And and I'd find myself trying to chase Amir Khan around the track, when we were doing the runs and stuff. And we'd spar, and then at the end of the camp we'd do like a round robin, box against Lithuania, Ireland, and obviously Germany. And there was only me and Amir and a guy called Sam Webb, who was a professional from London, that got golden belts out there. So that was sort of took us up to the January in 2004. And then what we're looking at now was going to a place called Croatia, Pula was called, where the European Championships were taking place. This was the first Olympic qualifier. For me, I was pitted up against the home fighter from Croatia, obviously. And I just remember it was probably the most hostile environment I've ever been. I mean, them Croats can really chant, and it was just like, I thought I was like in Rocky IV, when Rocky Balboa's were, and they're all shouting for the Russian, and that's what it was like. Anyway, I got well beat, but this kid was really, really good. He ended up becoming, he actually got to the final of the year, so he was European silver medalist, and he was world silver medalist. He always met the Russian in the final. And out of our team there, we had the likes of Dave Dolan as well. Amir Khan boxed a Georgian, lost a sort of tight one, but then he met him again in the next sort of qualifier and ended up qualifying. But out of the sort of home nations, and if we can class Ireland as a home nation, there was only Andy Lee that qualified that year. In that tournament. And then we went to another one, which was in Bulgaria, which was a second qualifier, and this is where Amir Khan qualified. I ended up boxing a Turk, and I remember being in the changing room. Me and Kenny Egan were in the same changing room, and we were egging each other on. He's going, come on, Davis, me and you in the final. We'll get there, we'll get qualified, and we'll meet each other in the final. It was just great, I ended up boxing it. I was drawn against a Turk, and politics were rife. I know they still are now at the minute, but they were really bad there. One of the main guys, I'm not trying to look for excuses here. I'm just trying to tell you exactly how it was there, and everyone else that boxing around that time will tell you the same. There was this guy who was on the European executive, whatever you want to call it, but he'd always be at ringside, and he was Turkish. You met a Turk, you were just like up against it straight away. And I thought I'd beat this guy quite comfortably. but obviously lost. He got the decision, and that was it. And then it was back to the drawing board, and then we had one final opportunity, which was the final world qualifier, and this was taking place in Azerbaijan. And what sort of happened for the last two qualifiers was they would do alternative weights, so every other weight would be either in Denmark, every other weight would be in Azerbaijan. But yeah, so we went there. I think it was in the May, towards the end of May, 2004. And I thought this is the final chance to qualify, and I thought it was probably my final crack at boxing, if I'm honest, because I thought I'm getting on a little bit now, and I need to start looking at my army career and everything like that. So I ended up going in there boxing. I was pitted against John Dovey, who I'd met and beat before 13-3. So I was quite confident going in. I thought I'll just use my speed, my footwork, and everything like that. Anyway, he ended up putting me down, I think, in the second round, and but I gets back up and everything, and boxes, and by all accounts, I can't remember much of it, but by all accounts, I put in a good performance, and Terry Edwards seemed to be really happy. He said it was a close one, but like I say, I couldn't remember it, and that is me that was my final bout, and obviously in the England vest and any really, competitive wise, and I never, if I look back now, would I ever box for my country? Would I ever have that golden opportunity pulling the England vest on and going, and because not everyone does, and let alone winning a few medals and stuff like that, and titles, and going to free qualifiers. With me, I can't be the only one qualifying. Can just tell you how hard it actually is. Things have changed now, and they have got a lot better. Speaking from a coach's point of view, but that was my sort of career in boxing. Especially as a boxer, and then it was time. Okay, go back to all the shots. Start looking at my army career and things like that. So that was me boxing sort of chapter come to an end as a competitor. What I did was, because I'd become a PTI years before me first stint in the army. So what I did was I started going to look to do a refresher. Whilst I was boxing, and once you do sport in the army, your career stands still. So a lot of my peers were out fighting wars and obviously Iraq, and they were moving up the chain and up the career ladder, where mine had basically, I was just treading water whilst I did the sport. So I thought the best route for me was to join what was called at the time the Army Physical Training Corps, which was no easy feat really, because you had to do a series of courses. You have to do a selection, then a series of courses, and so on and so forth. So basically what happened was I finished my boxing. I had a little break for a month or two, and then I went down to the PT school, which was in Aldershot, place where I was living anyway. I'd come away from the army boxing team. I did a PTI course, but you wouldn't believe it. All them times I was on full-time training with England and things like that, I put a pair of boots on, army boots on. I did a little tab and stuff like that, 8 miler, and my feet were in bits. I had the biggest blisters ever. And it just shows you sometimes when you're not conditioned to certain things that this what can happen. So anyway, I did my PTI course, passed that easy enough, and then I tried to go. I was posted to an army training regiment where they train recruits. Got a little bit of experience, and I went straight onto a PT course selection, which basically is quite intense. It's a week long. You start by doing, you rock up, you have to be smart, smartly dressed and all that, blazer, shirt, tie, shiny shoes, all the rest of it. And you go straight in, and you have to do like what's called like a group discussion, see how you interact. Are you too fiery? Are you too this? Are you just too laid back? Whatever. People are assessing you. You have normally two officers that assess you, sat behind you, whatever. And then you'll do an essay on a topic that they'll give, and it'll be a topic, some related to, something in the physical training world. And they would check your grammar and everything like that, your punctuation, everything. And then you would have to do some fitness elements, and things like that. Then you'd have to do some command tasks. So it's a week long, and then you finish off with some endurance, which is sort of survival of the fittest in a way. But what happened was you're supposed to get a folder, basically build up your career, what you've done in the past, what you can offer to the PT Corps. But what they see me as was just a one-trick pony. So I got like, sorry, you're not selected this time. All you've done is boxing. So I tried to explain to them that, as an elite athlete, you don't have any time to do anything else. That's your life, I forgot to mention, obviously, we went to the Commonwealth Federation Games in Malaysia. I got a bronze medal then and stuff like that. But it's like sometimes people that don't understand particular sports, and I thought they might have, because the boxing in the army is a prevalent sport, because it underpins certain values and standards, especially when you have to go into battle. So everyone was walking out like all joyous, and I'm walking out with my head down thinking, but it was just, I think throughout my life I've been one to fight through adversity. So it was a case of just, okay, dusting yourself off, go back and come back stronger. And that's what I essentially did. I did some other courses just to show them that I wasn't a one-trick pony. And went back. It may have been a year later, and I ended up getting in, and that was the start of a new sort of joining a new regiment, and things like that. So, when I left there, so I badged in July 2007. Was it 2007? July 2000? Yeah, it was just before my daughter was born, and I was posted to the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. I'm not too sure if you've heard of it, but a nice big plush place down in Surrey. And it was probably one of my best postings, because something prestigious like that, you were training, you had the responsibility to train and get future leaders of the British Army fit, fit to fight. And I loved it there, even still to this day. I still have, the officer cadets that we used to call them come through. I'm still friends with them now, and obviously what I'm doing now has got a link to that. So obviously I'm there. You look after an Army 3 platoons, you take them on physical fitness, but straight away they go, you've done boxing, you can be the boxing coach. But what I did was I did me level 1 and 2 anyway whilst I was boxing. So when I got to Sandhurst, I start, coming a little bit more, academically aware. So I start moved into me level 3, which is, it's night and day between your level 2 and your level 3, because you have to do programs and everything like that. So I sort of breezed that because of the job I was doing anyway as a PTI. And so I started training people at Sandhurst, young officer cadets. And what I used to do is, we used to have what was called Freshers Bazaar, and I wasn't aware of what this actually was, but I think they do it in universities, don't they, and what have you. But it was just a stall, and you had to sell your sport. So we were one of the popular sports. I think we had over 100 odd cadets, and I was thinking, what do I do with these many cadets? I have to train them twice a week, like Wednesday afternoons and Saturday afternoons. And then once it got a bit serious, I would implement every other morning. So I thought, what do I do with these? And I thought, best way to do, bust them down to the Army Boxing Centre, big, massive, facility. So that's what I essentially did. Plus, to give them a little bit of inspiration. Wow, this is the home of Army Boxing. Where before I got there, they were just doing it in squash courts and stuff like that. That's no inspiration. So I took them down, and I'd give them all technical work and stuff like that, the basics. But it was in the home of Army Boxing, which really inspired quite a lot of them. And my job was to whittle them down and put on boxing nights and get them evenly matched, and that's what we did at Sandhurst. And then I came across this young kid who was a bit brash. He was going, "Hey, staff," and his name was Mr. Carlet, because you used to have to call them by their names, but you have to address them as Miss or Mr. So this Mr. Carlet, turns out he was, His Royal Highness, the King's youngest son from Bahrain. Anyway, sort of built a bit of rapport for him. I didn't think boxing was for him. He wasn't really, but he had a right strong passion for it, But I just didn't think he was sort of, maybe not at that standard to sort of box. But he came in and, plus he had a little nose injury and stuff like that. But he's someone I got on quite well with. But like I say, you come across many different people, and I spent 2 years there, and had some right good, fantastic times there. And what I did was, there's lots of, always trying to put boxing on the map. There's a lot, like in Sandhurst, they have like a sort of period where everyone's trying to raise money for sponsorship and go to various charities. And I remember doing this with Berkeley once, doing skip-a-thons, even in the, I'm trying to remember, these guys, they're a secret organization. It's just slipped my mind. They do secret handshakes and all the rest of it. I remember we were going to places like this and they would give donations to the club, going down to the local Tesco's, filling carrier bags. But this particular time, I thought, we've got to do something different, something that'll, stand out to people. So I give it a little bit of thought, and I thought, you know what? Why not do a sponsored, like a sparathon? And I decided to do 100 rounds sparathon, which was, so what I was thinking was, the boxing night normally took place on week 12, whatever it was. So we're 3.5 weeks away from that at this current time, and I thought about it. And I thought what I could do is pick 25 officer cadets. They would come in, do 4 rounds. That would warm, like get them in sort of good standard, ready for the boxing bout a few days later. So I decided to do this on the Saturday, on the weekend, and then on the Wednesday they would have the academy boxing night. So we just have to set the logistics up, get the ring ready a bit earlier, 1 or 2 days earlier, that's all. Anyway, I had no training. So I was thinking, only do 2-minute rounds, 100 rounds, that's what I was thinking. But when you just got a sort of strong mindset and stuff like that, and I thought, because it's for charity. So I went out myself, trying to raise some money, and in the 3.5 weeks I raised 5.5 grand, which was quite a bit of money back then, 2008, whatever. Yeah, 2008. So this took place on Saturday, the 8th of March, 2008. And the time came when, done 100 rounds, start off. But I had it all professionally set up. I had a referee, I had a gong operator, or timekeeper back then, and, corner staff and everything. But I had a physio guy in my corner who was feeding me Lucozade, Diarylite and water. After about 40 odd rounds, I started to feel it. And then I think about 76 onwards, I sort of couldn't remember much. And I sweat quite a lot. And some I was just moving around, just letting them know I was there. But it was the actual, some came in, and fair play to the corner guy, who's a mate of mine. He used to fire them up and say, give him it. So they'd come in and proper have a go. So sometimes you'd have to let them know you were there. But after, I think it was around 97, 98. So like now 96, 97, this big guy came in trying to knock me out. I was nearly done, but I just had a little bit of skill just to let him know I was still there. But that was one of the good highlights, because it was just showing people what you can do to, and it did put academy boxing on the map anyway. And I think on the back of that, I was fortunate enough to get a commandant's commendation just prior to leaving Sandhurst. Because when I left Sandhurst, I went to take over the Army boxing team, and I took over none other than Chris Bessie, which was big boots to fill, really, big shoes to fill. But all coaches are different, and I'm totally different. And me and Chris are probably chalk and cheese when it comes to coaches. But I just utilise my experience through England, through everything that I've done. Even fitness-wise, I've got that PTI element that I can sort of bring in as well. And I thought, through with the Army boxing team, we did well there for the 2 years I was there. I managed to get quite a lot of boxers who were from England, Scotland, and Wales, their international vest, which was a huge achievement for them. And they were voted. I think back in 2010, we had 4 ABA finalists. Well, unfortunately, only one champion, but we had 4 ABA finalists, which was more than any club, I think, for a while. Maybe a long time it was, the ABA finalists in York Hall. And we were voted sort of best team or best club, whatever it was, in 2010 by Boxing News. So it was a nice, good sort of thing. It was a nice, good sort of ride. And I sort of, during that time, it was me that made the change how they did boxing with females, because what they did was they used to have it separate, for obvious reasons, all the rest of it, but you've got to move with the times. And to make them girls better, you have to spar, you have to train with the men, because that's what they were doing at GB. And I thought, even part of our prep for 2010, I'd actually got in touch with GB, my old coaches, and we took the Army team up there for a preparation camp, which held us on good stead prior to the start of the championships. But yeah, during that, and if you look now at the Army boxing team, who is it now that's actually leading the way? Females. You've got young Karis, who's just come back from a tournament, with silver medal because she's in boxing the final, but she's looking at qualifying for the Olympic Games, in a few weeks. You've got some others that are coming up who are, got potential. So, I'm proud of that. Not many people know that in a way, or don't acknowledge it. Not that I need them to, but it's just a personal thing for me, because I sort of made little changes, and although it's took a bit of time, it's come out well, and it's shown. But yeah, so when I left the Army team, I moved back to the PT school, did a bit of learning people how to become PTIs and stuff, and then I moved up to Catterick because I was on my last couple of years now. During this time, I've always been involved in the sort of boxing, up and down the levels in a way. Even the last unit, I didn't even mention about boxing, but word gets around, and I took this cavalry team and sort of like helped nurture them, and they become one of the best cavalry teams in many years. We don't do that to set records, because I believe them are for people that stand by and do discos and stuff. But it's just to better and show people structure and what can be done. Especially when you've got the right. It's all about safety and stuff like that. Because it's quite easy for someone that's never boxed before stand with a whistle and a stopwatch, and they don't have the same empathy. You see, so when I became a coach educator, I sort of drummed this home. Because like you say, I've seen too many people that, they've never boxed before, anything like that, but they think they know it all. Like, still to this day, every day is a learning day, even for me. But so going back to being in Catterick for those last few years, the sort of one thing I wanted to do was, before I left, was give something back in a way to the Army, but to show people. So what I did was I set up a boxing event, a dinner event, and it was for 2 reasons. The first one was to raise money for charity, give back to these various charities, but also, secondly, and probably just as importantly, is show people, just with a little bit of graft, stepping out your comfort zone, this what can be done. And we put on this. I had people from all different Army regiments and civilians. I had people, from around the garrison, sponsors. Even I had Glenn McCrory there. I had a young Tassif Khan from Bradford who came up. I had two Olympians, Josh Kelly and Pat McCormack, who just came back from Rio. And his brother Luke came, but he obviously wasn't Olympian then. But and I had like stuff from Anthony Joshua, signed glove from every Olympian, and all that sort of stuff. And it just went down a treat. And that was my sort of swan song for boxing in the army. But during the sort of last 5 years in my army career, 3 years should I say, was that 3 years? Probably 4 years. I was working part time with Great Britain, and towards the end of my army career, I was thinking, what am I going to do? You come out what's called the military bubble. Right, when I leave the army, I ain't going to get paid. I'm not going to do this. So I kind of just took a risk, and I put all my eggs in one basket. I didn't do any resettlement, or this is how you do gas fitting, this is how you do whatever. I just put all my time and effort into GB, and fortunately, I was able to ascertain a full-time role, which was a great, it was a great ambition. It was one of my life's sort of top ambitions, really, because it was my dream job. Obviously, in the sort of build up to that, I was quite busy because I'd left the army. I was still on the books with the British Army, but I was what was called, I guess some civilians call it like gardening leave, but we call it resettlement leave. And I was just tournaments back to back. I was in Bulgaria, I think, in the February, and in the March, I went to GB, which is in Finland. I remember coming back from that tournament on the Monday. I had one night at home, and I had to travel down to London. And probably you remember we ended up being involved in that Westminster attack, which was kind of bizarre, really. I'm not too sure if you want me to pause there or whatever, but that's sort of like, that was my military career, sort of like boxed off really at this point, because in the December of 2016, I'd left work, although I was still on the books. But that was the sort of, leaving work. I didn't have to go back into it, didn't have to worry about anything. And I just put all my eggs in one basket with GB and made myself more available to go to tournaments and things like that. So that was my military career boxed off, really. And in total, 22 and a half years I'd served. When I look back, some great times, some not so great times, but that's just life. So, but when I look back, I'm proud of serving 22 and a half years. It's probably made me who I am today. I've definitely learned a lot. I definitely failed a lot as well, but you sort of, even when you make mistakes, you sort of learn, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good point, really, that you mentioned about obviously Westminster, because I know, people that do know you or are aware of some of your story. Maybe they're aware of you because of the next incident that you was kind of unfortunately, put upon yourself, really, with what happened at that period of time. So it was late 2017. Obviously, you're part of Team GB. You're down in that area at an event at the time, and obviously there's a PC on duty at the time, and unfortunately, there's a man running around with a weapon, and unfortunately, he obviously stabs PC Keith Palmer, and you're the first one on the scene, and by all accounts, you were the one to run straight into the face of danger as a sort of natural thing to do, like a fight or flight mode, like that. They talk about fight or flight, don't they? And this was, for me, this was exactly what happened with you. But it's best that you tell that story of what happened in your own words and how things actually went down at that point.
Yeah. Well, I remember coming back from, they said, "Oh, can you do, support the WSB World Series of Boxing?" But I remember being at one a few weeks earlier. Obviously, that's where we used to box at York Hall, and we always do a PR event. And this one a few weeks back was taking place in Islington Boxing. So right grassroots level. And someone had mentioned, saying, in the next few weeks there's going to be a PR event at the Emirates, one of the Houses of Parliament. And I thought, I'd love to do just to myself, I thought I'd love to do the House of Parliament one, because we've been promised it a couple of times in the military, and it never ever happened. It fell through for whatever reason. Anyway, I'm in a GB tournament in Finland, and before this, I got asked whilst I was out there, could I do that? I went, yeah, no problem. So I came back on the Monday, had one night at home, and I travelled down by train, King's Cross. When you're only there for a one-off, show, you don't need a lot of kit. Set of pads, maybe one or two tracksuits, one set of trainers. That's enough. So you go down there, you pad the guys and for them to make the weight. It was like a professional setup in a way. They've got like sort of 24 hours, before the box, to weigh in and stuff. So when you pad them and all that, it's just about making the weight the next day. So we did that. They do the weigh-in, official weigh-in. And then what happens after that? A few hours, they're going to have breakfast, and then they do like a sort of mock weigh-in before the PR stuff and what have you. But then they were taking us, they bussed us, both teams, British Lionhearts and Italian Thunder, to Parliament. I remember it being a drizzly day, so I took the rain jacket just in case. And I remember the bus driver, he got a bit lost, so we're going like back and forth over the River Thames. And I'm with Lee Pullen, my fellow coach at GB, and where the two sort of headed up, but Lee would headed up, So we get into Parliament, gets off the bus, we go underneath what looks like airport sort of security, scanned and all that sort of stuff. Then you go in, and we end up, I don't know if you've probably seen it on the TV, but they've got like these white marquees on that back up onto the River Thames. The PR event was happening in there, and all it was about was British Lionhearts and the community. So they've got like British Lionhearts, like originate from sort of Islington, and they do like a grassroots project, taking kids off the streets and all that sort of stuff. So there was this MP and a sports minister that were heading it all up, and what it was having a couple of grassroots kids on show asking questions, and also with the Olympians. We had Muhammad Ali there, Fraser Clark, but obviously wasn't an Olympian then, and Pat McCormack, and then we had a couple of other boxers. And anyway, that went on about an hour, and then it was time to leave. So we started to leave, but I've got a sweet tooth. I said to Lee, Lee, there's some cakes over there. So we went over, grabbed the cakes, because he's got a sweet tooth as well. So we start eating the cakes, and some people came over and started speaking to us. Oh, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And that sort of delayed us leaving. So anyway, so we start leaving. We get through into sort of the grand hall, which is the big, massive hall type thing that looks out onto the courtyard. And as we're leaving, we can hear this sort of fracas. And if I'm coming out the hall, I look straight ahead. That's where the noise was coming from. But I couldn't see it. It was obscured because we were inside the perimeter. We were actually still inside Parliament, where the courtyard was. Anyway, all this noise was going on. I'm thinking it's some sort of fight. It's some whatever it is. Now I know that's where he crashed the car. Then the noise sort of travels to the left-hand side. And as I'm still in the courtyard, I look through the gates, and there's two sets of gates, and they're called carriage gates, which looks out onto, I think it's called Parliament Square. And I'm seeing people run. And I'm thinking, fucking hell, this is a Greenpeace activist march. And I get my phone out and I start videoing. And the mood just suddenly changed when I see the attacker come through with two knives above his head, and he starts stabbing the policeman. Well, I mean, everything just sort of happened dead quick. I put my phone in my pocket, but it's still recording. It's still on video mode, still recording. So that's in my pocket. I didn't know this at this point. And I'm gesturing for people to move because there's Joe public here. There's public all around going here. So obviously in this moment, he's obviously doing a frenzied attack on Keith Palmer, bless him. And I gesture for people to move. I get enough space and I jump over the fence. And I land on my 2 feet. As soon as I land on my 2 feet, it's just like unbelievable. Because before I'd made the jump, I see the police running away. And I'm thinking, what are they doing? Anyway, as soon as I jump over, I land on 2 feet. One of the coppers said, "Run, run, they've got knives." So when I've landed, it's all I can hear is him saying, "Run, run, they've got knives." So I'm thinking we're being attacked in numbers. And at this point, I'm thinking, shit, I've made a I made a bad decision here. But like I say, everything happens dead quick. That gentleman, that policeman, probably saved countless other lives and injuries because he given all he wanted, and obviously all the people ran away. So I've obviously run towards a situation. At this point, I'm thinking it's a marksman runs past me, but it turns out he's a bodyguard, and he puts 3 rounds into the guy. Straight away, I know because military experience that he's out the equation. So straight away, I don't even look at him. I just turn my attention to the policeman. At this point, he collapses. I'm straight over there. I gets down on one knee and I try to assess the injuries.
So, Tony, if you just want to take us through, what happens next. You go outside, you see what's happening outside. Your first reaction is to go and check on PC Palmer and check on his well-being, knowing what you've just seen visually in front of you. So what happened next then?
So what it was, I mean, at this moment in time, I didn't really. My intention wasn't initially to go and help PC Palmer. It was like the police were running away, and I couldn't understand really why they were running away. But obviously, it sort of dawned on me later on when I was told this because they were unarmed. So that makes complete sense. So I just thought they needed help. So when I've jumped over the fence and that policeman said, "Look, run! They've got knives." I thought we were being attacked in numbers. Fortunately, we weren't. It was just the one attacker, and at that time, the marksman, well, it turns out he was a bodyguard, put 3 rounds into him. I knew he was out of the equation. And when I see this policeman, I didn't know what injuries he had at this point, but he's collapsed. So straight away, he's in a great deal of difficulty. So I races over to him, gets down on one knee, and I assess his wounds. And the initial wound I see was a head wound, going across his head. And I was thinking, how the hell has this happened? You're supposed to be wearing a helmet. That's what just going through my mind. And at the same time, I'm doing multiple things like reassuring him. But I check his airway, check his breathing, check his circulation, and sort of looking for any other signs. Anyway, I just see a massive and it was bleeding profusely on his arm, a big, massive sort of wide open gash, which is obviously he's probably put his hands up to protect them and in the frenzied attack. So I put my hand over that to stem the blood flow, and I'm going, "Come on, son!" And at this point, I'm shouting, I don't know, just the army training just sort of kicks in or whatever, and I'm going, "Medic, where's the effing medic?" And this policeman comes over to me, and he's got radio and going. His name's Dougie. He's a good friend now, and he's going, "Police officer stabbed in the head." I went, "Get an effing ambulance, get an effing, we need a medic here now, hurry up." And like I say, everything's happening dead quick. Anyway, I'm going, "Come on, son," and I can see his eyes. He's going he's obviously in shock, and I'm thinking, we need to act quickly here because we're losing him. But at this point, I'm down on one knee, and I'm looking in between because we're on cobbles, so I'm looking in between the cobbles, like where the cemented, and it's filling up with blood, and I'm thinking, where's that coming from? And I just move his arm slightly, the one that's injured, and he's just got a horrendous, in between his stab vest, his whole latimus dorsi was wide open. I just couldn't believe what a knife actually does. And the only thing I could do at that time while I was stemming the blood from his bicep was, I still had my rain jacket. It was there. I don't know how, even though jumping over the fence, but it was just there on my arm. And I used that, pushed up against using me right knee to try and force the blood. And at this point, I'm shouting and screaming, "Where's the medic? Come on, where's the ambulance?" And at this point, there's obviously people starting to come. I'm going, "Come on, son. Come on, son. Stay with us. Help's on its way," and all that sort of stuff. And then a couple of his colleagues came over and they go, "Oh my God, it's Keith." This is where I get onto his name. I'm going, "Come on, Keith, son. Come on, help's on its way. Come on, you can do this." And at this point, there's other people coming. And obviously I've studied my phone where little did I know it was all recording. So like 3.5 minutes afterwards, obviously there was no danger. But this is where the MP, Tobias Hill, would come in. And I remember saying to him, because I'm dealing with a situation and everyone's obviously trying to help, and he starts barking orders and I'm going, who are you? He goes, I'm a doctor. And I just forget where I am for a few seconds or whatever. I just see some guy in a suit and I naturally just believe him. So I go, yeah, okay. Right, okay, let's rally round to and we made the decision to move Keith away from the sort of if you look at the courtyard, there's like obviously a big plantation area, and we're right close to that sort of one of the sides. So we move him a bit further, so we've got enough space to get round him. And then the decision was made to start CPR, and like there was a bit of sort of like hesitation. I goes, listen, I do, because obviously the blood and all that, so just get amongst it. Anyway, the HEMS team come. I think it stands for Helicopter Emergency Medical Support or whatever, and they come, and obviously the order's going, okay, like just stop what you're doing. So they want to assess the situation, and they're going, right, we have to remove his clothes. So remove his clothes. I'll help take his clothes off, and I'm there to support his head as well at this point. And what they did, and I've never even seen it in the army, they just carried out open heart surgery. They opened his chest cavity and took his heart out with his hand and tried to massage it. I mean, that was pretty, but it just shows the extent they went to try and save his life. And at this point, I just want to, like there's nothing I can do. That the HEMS, the SMEs are getting amongst it, and I just remember him saying, right, I need that blood, so I think they're going to do a blood transfusion. And I just think there's a bit of a time here where I go over, I want to see that, I want to look that terrorist in the eye. So I walks over and I sees him, and he's being tended to, and I was trying to like process why. At the end of the day, he's done this, but obviously I know in humanity and all that sort of stuff, we'll always try and preserve life regardless of who and what they do. Anyway, I sees enough, and I just like have my own thoughts, and I walk back to what Keith is, and I see his lungs moving, and I'm thinking positive signs. I'm going like I swear and everything. I go, get in, come on, and then it just seems a lifetime that we're there, and then all of a sudden the main HEMS medic guy, he stands up. His name was Tony actually as well. And he stands up, he goes, listen, guys, we've done all we can. Everyone's done all they can, but we have to call it a day. There's nothing more that can be done. Well, the whole mood just like sank. And then he carried on going, there's other people on the bridge that are in seriously need of help. And that's where we have to go now. And I'm like, what's he talking about? Because we didn't know what had happened earlier on. So anyway, there was this female officer. She just broke down. I went to try and comfort her, and she's like, get off. And she wants to walk off. And I asked another police officer to go over and make sure she's all right and stay close type thing. Just everyone sort of like, as you could imagine, just sort of like, it was just a horrendous feeling, and such a sad, and obviously Keith was then covered, and then me and another guy called Mike were taken. Tobias Elwood was allowed to just go whatever, but we went up the stairs and put into this canteen, and these two officers were looking after it. And this is when I would start asking questions about, I just don't know why the police were running away. And they goes, well, because they're not armed. What do you mean they're not armed? They're on one of the most iconic places in the British establishment, which is, obviously a terrorist target to most, and you're not armed. What? And I couldn't keep still. I had to keep moving. I guess the adrenaline was flowing, and I must have had about 37 cups of tea in that sort of time I was in there. We were in there for a few hours, and then I realised that I best start speaking to people, like calling my wife, and then realised that my phone was dead. I couldn't understand why my phone was dead. It was fully charged before I come out, but the reason was, when I obviously look back, is because it was videoing all that time. Anyway, that went on. I just remember it was Sky Choppers were out and there was a TV on, and I was looking at that, and everything just seemed like it wasn't real. I thought I was imagining stuff. I was walking around, keep walking around, could see this stuff on the TV. And I remember watching a film called London Has Fallen. And I thought I was part of that. You know, it was like, it was just surreal. Anyway, that got sort of done. We had to wait for the anti-terrorist police. We got them and everything like that. And I returned to the bus about 11 o'clock that evening. And yeah, the guys on the bus said, that was great. That was the boxing team, all the lads, and they were just saying, "You were just grey. I know I've got grey hair, but you were just white." That's what they were saying. And but we went back, and obviously the amount of people that were getting in touch was unbelievable, because what had happened was the boxers ended up being in sort of hold. You know, a lot of people were in sort of isolation in a way, and there was lots of press. And obviously, people were talking and stuff, and nobody knew where I was at this time. And obviously, this is how the media thing happened and everything like that. I mean, it was a sad day, a real sad day, but you know, one that's etched in memory. And you know, it's like, you know, we've just went past the 4-year anniversary, and it's just like, you know, you'll always obviously be remembered. You know, people say, "Oh, do you not regret what you do?" I said, "Well, no, not really." I said, "The only thing I do regret is not being able enough to get them through." You know, could you say you would do the same thing again if anything like that happened? You'd like to think so, but I'm a true believer that you will not know what you'll do until that situation presents itself, and that's exactly what the fight or flight moment was. And you know, and some of his colleagues I'm good friends with. I mean, they've sent a nice little gesture to me after my sort of recent sort of episode of bad luck. But you know, it's just one of them things. You know, like, just good that we didn't get them through. You know.
Yeah, it's obviously a very shocking day for yourself, but obviously for the nation as well, because it was, you know, no one expects things like these to happen, did they? On these shows, you kind of think that we're going to be okay. You hear about it in different countries, and you think it's really shocking that these things go on. But I think genuinely, the British public don't really expect these things to happen. So I recall, you know, that particular year was horrific for many reasons, in terms of terror attacks on the country, and the following year, they obviously felt like your actions were heroic enough to present you with a Pride of Britain award, which is, I can imagine it must have been a really bittersweet moment for you, that, because you're being presented with something, you know, in honor of what you tried to do, but in the same regards, as you said, you know, a part of you feels like you wish you could have done more. So, you know, just talk me through how all that came about, and obviously, you know, going to the event and the aftermath of all that, and how that made you feel.
Um, how it came about was, I get this phone call. I'm off. Obviously, I'm off on I don't know if it was a weekend or a weekday, or whatever. But I'm with me two girls at a play area, which is near mine, and I get a phone call, and I'm going, this is such and such from Pride of Britain Awards. I'm thinking, what? It's a wind up. You know what I mean? And like, but look, would just like to inform you, you know, you were put forward for this award, and basically you've won it. And I was like, I'm thinking, where's the punchline? I'm thinking, I really thought it was a wind up. I said, is this a wind up? No, it's not a wind up. I'm from such and such, and yeah, we work on behalf of these people and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, just amazed. And I'm thinking, really? Like, you know, Northeast Pride of Britain for bravery. And I was thinking, you know, I was like really humbled. So I rings my wife to tell her. I'm saying, I'm sure it's a wind up, you know. That's like, so, yeah, anyway, there was a bit of a process. So I said, oh, listen, and I had to, they sent an email to follow up, and I started to believe, yeah, it's real, obviously. And I felt like, yeah, I felt proud in a way, you know, because, and humbled at the same time. And I just remember it being a right good bash. But before that, they needed to do some videoing and stuff like that. and it says they would like to come down to Sheffield to video me in my workplace, and also to my home address to video my wife and kids. But I was at work, and my wife was at home, so Sheffield and Dalton are now and a bit away. So anyway, I think they'd just been to mine, but they couldn't tell me what they did. Just it was a bit of a surprise, but they never really said it was a surprise. They just said, "Oh yeah, we've just invited you, interviewed your wife and your kids, and just asked them a few questions." When they come down to Sheffield, they just got me and Lee, the other coach, to talk. But who was in camp at the same time was Anthony Joshua. I've known Josh for since 2009, 2010. So he said a few words, which was really nice of him. It's like the current heavyweight champion of the world, and he just said along the lines, when people were running this way, Tony was running the other way, and it was nice. And so fast forward to the event, we all dressed up smart, and it was like brilliant. How they sort of look after you, get you picked up from the hotel and stuff like that. It was just like really nice. So went in. But I'd just come from GB. I had to get the train up to Newcastle, meet my wife and my coach Ronnie at the time there at the hotel. We got picked up and we went there. It was all sort of glamorous. You felt like a little bit of a star, if I'm honest. It was like that much effort put into it. And there was interviews, and we met some people from Emmerdale, and obviously the lady from was it TSA, and then she went on to Coronation Street, and she's done a lot. She was the one that hosted it. I've got Michelle in my head, but I don't think it's Michelle, is it? But anyway, so and then they say to me, "Oh, you're up first." So straight away, what they do is they put this like big visual thing on, like what had happened, and like something similar to what they say in the news, but a little bit more in depth. And it makes you feel like, it does make you feel like you've, I don't know, like, I think it tries to portray to the public of what it would feel like being there, for a better word, I guess. But and then what they went on is the interview with me, where I introduced myself. I'm in my workplace, got punch bags behind me and all that. And then they talk about they show the clip of Lee, me the coach who was there, and like the impact it had on him. And then Anthony Joshua, I thought, wow, I've got someone like him sort of in my corner. Speaking of, and it just felt real nice. But then it went on to my wife asking questions, and then I went on to my daughters at the end, and they said, "Daddy, you're a hero." And I was just crying. Tears started to come to fill in my eyes, and then you have to get up and walk up onto the stage to accept your award. And I'm just like, obviously in bits when I see me girls, because as soon as I see me girls, I just start filling up. I was like, and like they just introduced you, and it was just a lovely, thing. And and I know there were some people in that crowd there who had lost, loved ones in Manchester and that. And for me, I felt a bit like, if I'm honest, it was a bit over the top for me. Like, no, I was really proud and really humbled by it all, but I didn't deserve really that. I think other people should have deserved it more than me, in terms of, and I know they're all different categories, but for me, when people ask, "How do you feel?" and I say, it's not about me. It's about all them victims and, the people that were killed and their families and, loved ones. That's the people that matter. At the end of the day, we were just there to try and help. Yeah, it's a traumatic event, one that'll never leave you. But I'm not the victim here. Never leave, and I do have some like little thoughts about it now and again. But I think they're the real people. So when I accepted the award, and I said, I'm sure a lot of people in this audience would have done the same, and they would have. I've got no doubt about that. But I just said, like, I was quicker, and just try to bit of sort of lighten the mood and bring a bit of humour to it, as well. But it was, I just felt really humbled and, like, pride of Britain. And I had like some footballers, from Newcastle United, my home team, and like ex-footballers, like I'm having a beer with them at the end, and they're going, you shouldn't be so humble, but that's just who I am. it's like, yeah, and I'm not a hero. I'm just a normal human, but I'm a person that likes to help people. I guess that's why I'm a boxing coach. I've made mistakes and ended up in sort of like situations by going to help people. But that's just, I guess, part of life and part of learning. And I was just humbled by it all, and I was just really thankful because I'm sure, as I said that night, actually, when I received the awards, I said, this year has been last year, 2017, has been a heinous year, and I said, I'm so humbled to receive this, especially because I'm sure there was many other people that were up, you know, and probably could have been voted ahead of me, So I feel really humbled by accepting this because it was a heinous year. Westminster was the first of many, you know. Um, but yeah, like I said, I was really grateful, and it sits in me. It sits in me, the memento, and that sits in me house, and a sort of nice sort of pride of pride way in a way, But
I suppose it's a good time to lighten the mood, obviously, from going back to such a difficult time to the way things have moved for your coaching career. Because one of the things that really struck me about you before coming on to speak to you was that I noticed all the accolades and things that you'd done in your past, and then there was one bit of information I looked at and I thought, is this right? Is this what he's doing? Is this what he's up to? And then when I read into it more, I'm like, actually, fair play. He's doing something completely different, completely against the grain. But again, it's something that I can imagine he's really enjoying doing. So I'm referring to the fact that obviously you made a decision to move away from Team GB and that setup. And you mentioned earlier about a meeting round about 2008, 2009, which kind of seems to have coincided with where you're at now. So, for the benefit of obviously everybody watching and listening, like just explain that move from GB over to the Middle East and to Bahrain in particular.
yeah, so what happened, and it was probably come about as an offspring from the Westminster attack, because as you know, there was probably quite a lot of media that covered it and stuff like that. So what happened was, who I mentioned earlier on, Mr. Khaled, who's now the Prince of Bahrain, King's youngest son, he he got wind of what happened, and we not really spoke to each other for a long time. So someone got in touch with me and says, "Look, can I pass your number on to him?" I said, "Yeah, of course." And then he gets in touch like a few weeks later. And he goes, "You remember me?" Goes, "Yeah, of course I do." And you got the same WhatsApp number, same profile picture, everything. And he's going, "I'd like you to come and train me." I said, "No." I said, "I'm in my dream job. You know, everything I've ever wanted was to be sort of a full-time coach of Great Britain, and in my eyes now, even now to this day, is the world's best performance program. You know, I can't see anyone, for what they have support-wise and everything. Um, so anyway, he speaks to me and he's going, "Look, I'd like you to come out, train me." And I'm going, he says, "Look, let's just have a meeting." So we'll come to that. I go back to GB. I say, "Look, can I go out and stuff like that?" So I get flown out there with him, and we chat. And I was a bit nervous because I never seen him for many years, and so a long one short was, we get out there and he wants me to train him, just train him. So I'm thinking, I'm in my dream job, you know. Um, and I'm like, I'm thinking, nah, you know. You talk about comfort zones and stuff like that. You're not in your comfort zone at GB because you're always working and it's all about the boxers, and especially under the leadership of Rob McCracken, which is who's a tremendous guy. It's just a brilliant environment to be in, and like when you see the success of the boxers and stuff like that, it just it's just fantastic. So anyway, I get out of Bahrain and I'm still not you know, I say no, I'm loyal to GB. So I comes back and just carry on as normal. Gets another phone call a few months later. Can you? Yeah. So I go back out a second time, and then I'm still not convinced. So in between this time, so this is towards the back end of, well, you're talking August time, 2018. I'm in between two tournaments. I've been to one in Turkey, Istanbul, and then I'm going to another one in Romania. In between that, I've got the Westminster inquest at the Old Bailey that I have to attend. So people see I'm not my normal self. It's pretty visual, I think, to people. And I was actually called in saying, "Is everything okay? You're not yourself." But what it was, I might have put it down to the inquest, but it was trying to make a decision. Do I go there, or do I leave my dream? Do I leave my dream job and go there, or do I stay where I am? And like the matter of fact was I tried to do something which was for the benefit of my family. So obviously made the choice to venture out there. And it was a real, I'll be honest, I was coming back from Romania and I was typing my resignation letter and I had tears in my eyes. That's how much it meant to me, and it still does now. Now being in Sheffield here at camp, it's great being here, and I still obviously miss it. But I made that decision to go out there. I didn't know what to expect, but I've got a good relationship with, His Highness, and it's like I would say it's more of a friendship than a sort of work relationship. And I get out there just to train him. I trained him a couple of times, and then he's a busy guy. He wears many hats, and everything like that. Commander, special forces, things. So he's a busy guy, and boxing's only a small element to him, very small. So he calls me in a meeting, I think, towards the end of January, and he goes, "This is January 2019," because I'd actually moved. I did my last day in GB, November the 30th. The very next day, I flew to Bahrain, December the 1st. It was when Tyson Fury was boxing. Was it his first fight with Wilder? Anyway, so I get over there at the end of January, calls in a meeting. I've only trained him a couple of times because he's a busy guy. And he says, "I want you to set up boxing." Well, I can't explain how I felt when he mentioned that, because I think my backside just fell out. I thought, how do I do this? Bear in mind, I've had a couple of months to understand a little bit of the mindset and everything like that. So anyway, that was the task. I can't really negotiate with that and say, "Oh well, I can't be doing that. You never said that before I come out." He's got me out there now, and so anyway, I just quickly set about doing it, and in sort of short time, I started doing it from both ends. Tried to set up a team, so we had like a bit of regular training going, national team. So I did some like assessments. They call them tryouts, but I said assessments. Just come in, see what you like, if you're coachable and stuff like that. And at the same time, I was invited to an event a few weeks earlier, but it was like a multi-sports event. That's some Muay Thai. I didn't even know what that is. To be honest, I couldn't even tell you what Muay Thai is now. They had some kickboxing, taekwondo. It was all done in a ring anyway. And then it came to the boxing. Well, what they thought was boxing. So I started taking some notes. I was just in jeans and a polo top, and I had a little notebook with me. And like the first thing that stood out, there was no judges. So straight away I'm thinking, well, who's deciding the winner? Then the coaches as though they were going down probably the print works in your neck of the woods, like they were going for a night out. There's no like sports attire. It didn't seem like any regulations. Then I start timing the duration of rounds. Well, they're just made up. Just whatever. That'll do. You know what I mean? And I'm saying to this guy, because he spoke a bit English, who was next to me, I was going, well, the towel should be put in there. No, you won't get that because it's a sign of surrender. I went, it's a sport, man. It's not a war. It's like, So it was so I thought what was missing, and it was boxers running to and from the changing room. It was because obviously they didn't have the right kit. So I thought education was missing here, like sport specific education. So I quickly set up a sort of coaching course, for them, and I was quite surprised at the uptake. Anyway, politics can be out, quite big out there, but I had everyone after the first day, speaking to everyone, swapping numbers, which was great. And then we made a sort of coaching structure, and then we followed it up with an officiating structure, R&J course. And then we put an event. But before we put an event, I thought it was important to get out and show, look, Bahrain is boxing internationally now. So very quick, after like sort of end of January, you talk in April, back end of April, we went out to the Asian Championships, which were out in Bangkok, in Thailand. I took a male and a female out there, and I thought it was very, pertinent to take a female out there because of, Middle East country, and when, the equality side of things. But what it was is I never liked making up the numbers, but I just thought on this occasion it's important to just look. There's the flag of Bahrain, that boxing, because I'd actually got in touch with members of the Asian Boxing Confederation, and they're based in not Dubai, Abu Dhabi. So they're in the chair for like 4 years, whatever. And I get in touch with them initially, and they went, Bahrain have boxing? Yeah, they were surprised. I says, oh yeah, it's early days. So anyway, we went out there. We get out there, and we'll have a male and female. The male goes out there and boxes against a Chinese guy, gets beat easy, which was, I guess, a bit expected, due to the lack of experience. And then the female, she draws the world champion from North Korea. Well, it's just the luck of the draw, So she managed to get a round and a half in, and then I have to throw the towel in, because at the end of the day, she's world champion. The girl's just getting into a sort of starting to go through the gears, so I just quickly throw the towel in. I thought that's enough. So it was like job done in a way. Look, there's the flag. Bahrain are now actively boxing, and then we just like sort of step by step built on it. We did a domestic show. Well, sorry, when we came back from there, the guys from the Asian Boxing Confederation, which form, I guess, the United Arab Emirates, they said, oh, Bahrain, you come with us, Ramadan tournament. Ramadan tournament's obviously box at 2 o'clock in the morning type thing. So we went there, but I think people were a bit surprised, and because I brought a particular philosophy, and probably a diluted version of what we do at GB over there, because you kind of implement it fully because of the mindset and the lifestyle and everything like that. So we go to this Ramadan tournament, and the guys are boxing, and they thought I was just got off some boat and like was just a newly qualified coach, because they start like pulling a few fast ones, like changing the duration of rounds, referees being a bit too, not picking their boxers up or whatever. So I had to have a word with them, and they were good as gold. I just said, look, what you're doing there is probably ain't sportsmanlike. So that's all it was just having that quiet word, and they were good as gold, and the guys did well. We got a couple of gold medals and a few bronzes, and one of them got a best boxer. So it was like on the way, and then we've done a domestic tournament, and then for some reason in the September of 2019 we put a dual international, like Bahrain against Kuwait, and I thought, why has no one done this before? It's dead easy. Well, it's not dead easy because you have to do most of it yourself, organization wise. So we did Bahrain against Kuwait, and which went okay. Bahrain won. I mean, I think it was 7-3, whatever it was. But it was just it was part of their experience. But what I used to do is, before that, would have certain events to go to. So you had Asian Schoolboy Championships that were taking place in Kuwait, and in the October we had Asian Junior Championships. But what I'd do is I'd only have one boxer on each of them, but I would take half a dozen boxers with me and I would run a training camp alongside it just to try and accelerate their development. And let me tell you, when we were in Kuwait, which was the hottest place I've ever been, so you can just feel for them guys that liberated Kuwait, and my mates and me being in before they went into Iraq and stuff. But the hottest place I've ever been, and I'm trying to get the Bahrainis into a structure of training 3 times a day. Well, it was just a culture shock. Yeah, but it paid dividends. And like I said, towards the end of that year, we ended up boxing in Dubai against Ireland and UAE, as like a sovereigns championship. And it was just good development. And early on in that year, we brought a boxer, Denis Latipov, who's from Russian descent. He was. I remember him because he was boxing in WSB, but for Azerbaijan under Baku Fires. I just remember the name. And then he was out in the States trying to see if he could turn professional in that. But then he came to us, and we took him to Ukraine, sort of a little over 2 years ago. And he had a bout, one particularly great, but we took him away to training camps and worked with him and stuff like that. So 2019 was okay. Then obviously we move into 2020, which was obviously the Olympic qualification year. The Asian qualifiers were taking place, or supposed to take place, in February 2020 in Wuhan. Obviously, everyone knows where Wuhan is nowadays. So what happened was, in the January, I'd organised a training camp in Bulgaria, and then to compete in Europe's probably oldest and toughest tournament. It's affectionately known as the 4th major, after the Europeans come out. Well, Europeans, Olympics, and Worlds. So we did a training camp there. So it's the second week in January, and it was a bit of a bad time actually, because I just lost my coach, who was like a father figure to me, Ronnie Rowe. He died of cancer, unfortunately, and anyway, so I had to fly back and attend his funeral and stuff. But anyway, I came back and we'd met the Hong Kong team, and I said to them, I said, so what you doing? They were like, us, developing nation, and they just come for the training camp. And I said, oh yeah, one of this boxer here, he's going to go into the qualifier. I went, okay. I says, are you looking forward to going to Wuhan? And they turned round. So the second week in January, don't you know about the situation? They told me about the virus. And I'm like, really? But I could see, it was the eyes that told me. It was like pure fear. He's going, don't listen to Chinese. They tell you, bullshit. It's like all lies and stuff like that. So I goes back to my hotel room. Well, if you can call it a hotel in Bulgaria, because you don't stay in luxury all the time. So I get on the internet and looks, World Health Organization. There's nothing on there. It's all on Twitter. All the videos, some of the bad videos that were coming out. And I'm like, wow. Well, a week or so it went by. It's starting to come out on the news and stuff, and it was starting to slowly become the epicenter of the epicenter, obviously, of the virus. And I'm just thinking straight away that the International Olympic Committee will not send thousands of people there. So I'm thinking it's going to be changed. And I was right. A lot of people didn't believe it, and I was right. It got moved to Jordan. So what happened was, we did the training camp there. One of the boxers gets beat off an American kid, one of the Bahraini boxers, and Dennis, he reaches the final and he comes away with a silver medal. And I thought that would have been good preparation, but now we don't know what's happening. However, the qualifier gets moved from Wuhan to Amman in Jordan, and I'm thinking, oh, that's good for us because it's a shorter flight. So I know the national coach from there, he's Ukrainian, Andrei. So I get in touch with him and I says, look, can we come a bit earlier, like end of February, do a training camp leading up to the qualifier? So that's essentially what we did. So he gets there, does the training camp and all that sort of stuff, and then the competition starts. The draw's made. So Dennis gets drawn against one of the other guys, Abdullah, he gets drawn against the world number 3 from Thailand. And I've seen him about lots of times. I'm thinking, I'm not too sure whether to pull him out or anything, but I let him have a go. I ended up putting the towel in during the second round. And then Dennis has drawn against a South Korean, and he ended up stopping him in the third round. But when I was at the draw, straight away, his next bout was against the world champion, Big Uzbek, they call him. He's like a Tyson Fury, probably a bit better. And that's saying something probably right now at the minute. But and I'm thinking, and this was for the qualification bout. So what's happened is that he's went in there, and I'm thinking, deep down, I'm thinking he could potentially get stopped here, because I've seen what this Uzbek does. I've seen what he done to the American. I've seen him. He really puts people to sleep in a way, you know. But Dennis gives him a good bout. He gets beat easy in a way, but he gives him a hard time, and he actually hurts him. So anyway, he gets beat on points, but it's the top 4 that go through, and obviously we just reach the quarterfinal. But the Uzbek wins, you know, easy, gold medalist. So then Dennis is ranked 5th. So the 4 medalists qualify automatically, and Dennis is ranked 5th. So we just miss out. So we're like that. Obviously, now what we have to look to is the May, where the final qualifier was going to take place, and the World Olympic qualifier was going to take place in Paris in the May. Obviously, a few days later, because you've got the Olympic task force now, boxing task force, that are doing everything in place of AIBA, who are really doing a great job. So they move straight to London, and they're going to their European qualifier, but after 3 days it gets sort of stopped because of Corona. No, there was no Corona issues when we were in Amman. And then obviously what happened was, we goes back to Bahrain. Obviously, we're probably one of the first people to get tested in Bahrain. And I just asked the boss, can I go home for a few weeks? Plus, I wanted to go to London anyway, because we should have been attending the 3rd anniversary, which was going to be an official one. And I could attend the boxing as well, the European qualifier. But after we go into lockdown, don't we? So I end up coming back home, and I end up being stranded in UK, which wasn't too bad because I'm with my family. And so for 6 months, and then I returned back to Bahrain in the September, and then it's like everything's still restricted. You know, gyms were gyms were starting to slowly open, but you couldn't do any contact. You couldn't do, you had to do things behind closed doors. So what happened was, nothing happened for the rest of that year, really. 2020, 2021. We're doing little bits with Dennis, and then I get news that obviously the world qualifier is going to be cancelled. They're going to go into some sort of ranking system. And the long and short of it is that we had some great news. Is that because Dennis got beat off the world champion, the Big Uzbek, that he's actually qualified for the Olympic Games, which was amazing news. It was like, for people that know boxing, it was like Guinness Book of Records. Like, you can speak to people that don't understand boxing, and they'll go, "Oh, so how many you got qualified?" Just the one. What is that? Yeah. Where people who understand boxing, they really get it. Wow. So for a nation like Bahrain, and it's like, for me, it's Guinness Book of Records stuff. We've come with, all we've done is plodded on. We've done the training camps. We've tried to do the preparation, and it's come good. Okay, probably a little bit of luck as well, because what we were trying to do this time last year was we were still trying to qualify. Me putting a plan together to go to Paris. What's the preparation going to be, the lead up to Paris, and to try and qualify? I'd even got all the names of the boxers that were potentially entering, so I could try and work out some tactics, in preparation, for anyone we eventually met. But a year later, now we're planning on to be successful at the games rather than qualify for them. So that's hence why we're here now in Sheffield. But going back after that, Dennis hasn't had any sparring for nearly a year because of the restrictions, for everything, everything that went on, the lockdown. So a tournament that we went to was in March this year, which was the Bofrus International Boxing Tournament taking place in Istanbul. And, considering the lack of preparation he's had, he managed to get 3 bouts under his belt, and he walks away with a bronze medal. But it's not about the medals, it's the bouts underneath his belt. That's what we wanted. So he managed to get three bouts under his belt, and then obviously everything's happy. The following day we had to be tested to travel back, and then because we're traveling back on the Sunday. So on the Saturday, I'm organising some sparring for the rest of the guys from the team, because we've got some South American teams from Peru, Ecuador. So it's like different styles and stuff like that. So I'm facilitating the sparring that, and then I get a message off the Turkish Boxing Federation saying, right, me and one other boxer have to isolate. I've tested positive for corona. You just couldn't make it up. And then, what happened after that? We were took to an isolation room in the hotel, and it was like, I can laugh about it now, but I was like, at that time, I was thinking, well, I'm all right. During the week of the competition, the only sort of symptoms I had was like, I didn't even think it was a symptom. I just started to get dizzy every now and again, and it would only be for a few seconds. And the best way to describe it was like, and a lot of boxers will understand this, and ex-boxers, is that when you get hit on top of the head, everything sort of slows down for a split second. That's what it was like. It was taking a headshot. But I just put it down to probably the workload and the elevators. That's what I was putting it down to. But now I know it's one of the symptoms of coronavirus. And anyway, so I get took to the hotel room, and they test us again. And then they're saying, right, because you've tested positive the second time, you have to stay here for 10 days. So I'm like, 10 days in Istanbul, like, we've got other things that we need to be doing, that's all I think of. I'm thinking like, so I'm going around to check the other boxer. I see he's fine. And then, yeah, he's fine, he's okay. But then I start to deteriorate. Within 2 days, I'm like sort of man down. Like, my breathing is in bits, my voice, everything. I managed to get an oximeter. My levels went down to like 89, 90, sometimes 91. And I think they've got to be, well, I now know they've got to be 95 plus, for a normal person. So what happens is I'm starting to feel really ill at this point, and I'm thinking, I need some medical attention. So for some reason, I just get in touch with the British consulate, and I was very disappointed in their response. They just said, look, we can give you a number. That's the best we can do for you. So it was like, okay. So I ended up relying on the Turkish Federation, and they got me sort of paramedics, and they sort of took me to hospital. And I thought I was in a good place. I spent 11 days in this first hospital. But the thing is nobody spoke English. So Google Translate became my best friend. Like I said, my wife tried to speak to the consulate. They couldn't even get a translator for me. I'm just in this hospital, and I'm getting punked with everything. Like, I don't have a clue what's happening. But I think I'm in a good place because I'm in hospital. I think I'm being cared of. But then I quickly established that hygiene isn't one of their top priorities here, because they've got a fire exit outside my room. They're out there smoking, and then they're coming in, putting me oxygen on. I had to refuse one blood test once because the guy with no gloves on, he had crap underneath his fingernails, and I said, no, do it later, like this, and I just walk away. Anyway, and I'm up and down like a yo-yo. I have some good spells, and I have some really bad spells. And what they're doing is the hospital were just putting a positive stance on to everyone outside. So to the Bahrainis, and obviously my wife, they're saying, yeah, he's stable. Well, my temperature starts shooting through the roof, 40 plus and everything like that. At one point, there were 6 of them holding me down on the bed because I was fitting, and trying to ice me down with ice packs and everything. And then I realised that I try to keep my mind sharp, because I'm a true believer. As soon as you lose your mind or let that go, your whole body will just fall apart. It was falling apart anyway, because I lost 13 kilos in the process. And I started to see people who was in the rooms to the left and right of me disappear, and they weren't going home. So it got to day 11, and I'm starting to like, I'm thinking, I'm not getting any better. And then the doctor came to see me every day. I call him Doctor Death now because he had this obviously white, his white coat on and stuff. And what he was trying to say in his very broken English was positive in a way, but it never matched his eyes or his body language. So I couldn't really believe him. And I was right because he was trying to put a positive stance on everyone, but it wasn't. And I thought, really, I'm going to end up with just being a statistic. So on day 11, I get in touch with my wife and I start to really rapidly deteriorate here. And I says, listen, I need to get out of here. I really do, honestly. I'm not going to make it. I just feel really ill. I'm not getting any better. Like my voice was just horrendous. I'm surprised people couldn't make me out. Anyway, my wife gets in touch with the Bahrainis and they say, right, okay, and they give her a list of hospitals. She gets in touch with one. This doctor from this hospital gets in touch with the hospital man now, and then after some deliberation and all that sort of stuff, sharing of notes, they rang my wife and they said, listen, if we don't move him now, he won't make it. I mean, I don't know how she dealt with that. And they said, look, we can leave this bed open in ICU because he needs to go straight in ICU. We can keep that open for 2 hours, but we need proof of funds. And I mean, it wasn't cheap, like the whole lot. It's been thousands and thousands. And like, so what they do is the bar rangers say, yeah, get it done. So I'm blue lighted from from one hospital to another. And I end up FaceTiming my wife and a friend of mine, and they thought it was the last time they thought I was saying goodbye to them because I was in a horrendous state. And I just remember getting put in the ICU in this hospital, and then 6 days later, start coming about, and then start reacting to all the medication, and then spent another 11 to 12 days inside another ward, and then I was released from hospital into like a hotel right next door to it to do the outpatient bit for another 5 days, and that's probably been the scariest moment in my entire life. I mean, I'm sat here now. This time last month, I was like sucking in oxygen for life. That's the sort of long and short of it. And I guess some people probably won't believe that. Seeing me now, because I mean the weight's back on me. But the pain. I was lying in a hospital, and the pain of potentially not seeing your kids again. That coupled with what the pain the virus gives you, was just absolutely horrendous. And to be honest, I was a bit disappointed that I talk about remember being at the Westminster and the PR event. There was an because she lost her seat after Theresa May done the election. She contacted the government, sort of on my behalf, tried to reach out, if something could be done. I mean, I got zero for them. And I just thought, when I was laying in that bed, I thought, not just serving your country and stuff like that as a soldier, because thousands and thousands of people have done that. But I just thought, I don't know, maybe what I did at Westminster, just a glimmer, and that's just me being genuine and open and honest. And I just thought maybe there'd be they might just be able to help me in a way. But the simple matter of fact is, they did nothing. And if it hadn't been for the Bahrainis, I wouldn't be sat here now. So my boss, His Highness Sheikh Khaled, if it hadn't been for him, I wouldn't be sat here now. And like, I feel like, I owe them. And obviously, big part of it was my wife, because my wife made all the communication and sort of told them exactly what was happening. Because obviously everyone was just believing what the first hospital was saying. But I'm just happy to be here to sort of share this story. And like I say, I said at the beginning, I'm pretty humbled. It's first ever podcast, and I'm just sort of humbled to tell my story. And at the same time, happy to just be here, sort of being normal in a way compared to where I was this time last month.
It's to be honest with you, Tony, it's probably been one of the only podcasts I've ever done where I've not had to say too much, because you've had so much to be able to share with myself and the people that watch it and the people that listen, and be able to give us an insight into what it's been like throughout your life, the ups and the downs, and obviously more recently the success you've had with taking a country from the ground upwards, and the boxing in that country, and turning it into something that's become much more established from what it was, and to be able to get a boxer to the Olympics, whether it be only one boxer or not, that's an achievement in its own, and something that I think should be celebrated more than probably what it has been done. And it's good that obviously people are starting to recognise it. Obviously, myself included, when I first come across you over social media, and I was reading into it, and I was like, this, Tony's got an absolutely unbelievable journey, and I think it needs to be shared, and I think people need to hear what he's done, not just what he's done, but also what he's just recently been through and come out of the other side on. So for me, it's been humbling to hear everything, and for you to share this journey. And I totally appreciate the time that you've given myself, the people that are watching the video version, the people that are listening to the audio version. It's been a truly remarkable story, and there's obviously a lot more to come yet, because you've got the opportunity now to take a boxer from Bahrain to the Olympics and take that forward. And I suppose my final question and the final bit of information that I'd want to know from yourself is, what lies ahead for you now?
Well, that is an interesting question, because I could be one of those people that say, look, job's done, we've overachieved, but I'm not, because I'm a great believer that Dennis is another fellow human being, regardless where he's from, here, whatever. He's a fellow human being. He's got a wife, he's got a young daughter, and boxing for me was about changing people's lives, and it's very hard sometimes for us as amateur coaches to do that. Obviously we don't like to say amateur nowadays, but as grassroots boxing coaches, even international coaches, it's very hard to do that. But if you can make an impact on someone's life, then I think you're doing your job as a coach, because there's so much more than just holding a set of pads or blowing a whistle or telling them what to do and correcting their faults or whatever. There's so much more that you can do. You know what I mean? Like, if I can just go back to when I was lying in hospital, I'm on a WhatsApp group with ex-GB boxers. So basically everyone that's represented GB or England, from 2004 cycle, 2008 cycle, 2012 cycle, got the likes of Tom Stoker, Paul Smith, Stephen Smith, David Price, Darren Barker, Frankie Gavin, Tony Jeffries. There's about 40 of us on there. And, it just shows you what, like, boxing, when you've had an impact. So we've all served, representing our country. So we've got a common bond there. But what they did when I was laid in hospital, they sent flowers and hampers and everything like that to my wife, which I didn't need to do, but that's the boxing family coming together. Joshua Bouts is in California. Obviously, he's back here now because he's boxing on Saturday. And he FaceTimes me when I'm in hospital and I've got an oxygen mask on. Like, salt of the earth, because he still remembers what, the time and effort that was put in before, even when he was a youth boxer. So, like, there's so much you can do. So for me, moving forward is, I thought, right, now it's about trying to be successful at the Olympic Games. So a couple of months ago, I got in touch with Rob McCracken, my old boss, and even in Ireland, and to set up 2 camps. One should have been in Belfast a few weeks ago, where we were doing a joint camp with France, Germany, Italy, UK, obviously GB and Ireland. But I couldn't do that because I was otherwise engaged in hospital. But I've managed to come back here, and we've been here now 2 weeks in camp nearly with GB, where Dennis is sparring with Fraser Clark, who's me and Fraser Clark. It's a bit surreal because me and Fraser Clark have got some episodes and some stories that we've been on during our time where he was there with Minister as well. It's like, so surreal, but we're trying to help each other because he's going to be boxing a similar opponent to what Dennis is, his first bout in the European qualifier. So, it's just all about trying to help one another out. But I guess going back, I think so much to look forward to, really. I don't know if I said before, but when I left my dream job at GB, I thought automatically I've just give up the chance of going to the Olympics. I've totally given it up. I never made it as a boxer. I'm definitely never going to make it as a coach. But that's your dream, really, to try and, especially as a boxer. So I thought, but now we're going to go as a coach, but now I've still got to do my job and try to make sure he's in the best, physical and mentally, form he can be in to get there. I mean, you're talking 2 bouts. If he wins 2 bouts, he's got a medal and he changes his life. Not only does he change his own life, he changes his family life. So it's about drilling all this into him. But again, it's all down to the draw and the application and everything. But going back, David Price, he went. I think when he went to Beijing, he met the world's #1. I think first time out, and he beat him. So I've got that motivational speech in me locker ready to bring out to when it needs to be. But things like that, so nothing is impossible. I thought it was being possible to set boxing up in Bahrain, a little tiny country sat in the Gulf, which is connected to Saudi slightly. So it's like nothing is impossible. And I'm a great believer, nothing comes from comfort zones. So, and looking back, it hasn't been comfortable. It hasn't been easy, but we managed to persevere and keep going. So after the Olympics, then what happens is a good question. I mean, I don't know really. Is a good answer. I'd probably like to stay still doing, but sometimes you can be coaching in isolation. Sometimes you can be, and like that's what's been good about coming back here, seeing the old coaches and seeing the boxers that you spent time with. So yeah, it'll be interesting. All I know, one thing is that I'll still be involved in boxing, but I mean, it's a good question.
Well, to me, Tony, you truly are one of boxing's unsung heroes, and people that obviously know of you, the people that are within the sport so deeply, they know who you are. You've said it yourself. The amount of people that have given you the recognition, not like you've asked for it, but you deserve it. And my hope is that when people have sat down and listened to this or watched it, whichever way they've consumed it, they actually get to see you for you and what you've done for the sport, and the people that maybe have got an interest in the sport and are trying to sort of learn and educate themselves a bit more about it might actually get to learn about the true grassroots of the sport. And for me, I consider you to be part of the true grassroots of the sport, and I think many people will. And I think this is what it's all about, is finding out more about people like yourself and realizing what goes into to making these great fighters that come out of it that eventually go on to turn professional. You said it to me before. You said, like, you don't get many amateur coaches that come on and do interviews or podcasts or anything of that nature, and the reason for me doing it is that, and not just that you've not just been on a normal journey, you've been on this journey that's got so many twists and turns on it, and it's been an amazing pleasure to be able to listen to you and hear all the stories from you, and on behalf of obviously everybody listening, I want to thank you for taking the time out to speak to me.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. And if I could just say one thing, I mean, when I was laid in that hospital, and I was like, I really thought the door was closing, and I mean, I was overwhelmed by the support. I didn't realize I had that many friends, but I think even from people from like years ago, and like, so I sort of think I've had a little impact on some people in a way, even through the vehicle of boxing. And because boxing's always been my life, everyone that knows me is boxing has always been my life, and I hopefully will always be. But I would just like to say, if any of those people that did contact me and I never got back to them because I wasn't, I'm still trying to go through some of the messages, just to say thank you very much, and it means an awful lot. I mean, like I say, everyone's been so kind, and like I said, just good to be back here, and I hope that can inspire many other people to get into the sport, not even as a coach. Yeah, but you don't even have to be. There's some young kids out there who maybe not physically able, but they can go through another route through, whether it be officiating or even coaching. It's like there's so many avenues there, and people should like widen their horizon to like be part of it, and and sort of better the sport, because there's a lot of people out there, and I guess the fallout hasn't sort of dropped yet in terms of what the lockdown and the mental the mental health side of things. And I think we need to all come together and try and utilize everything that we have to try and break the stigma and get people actively back involved. Because I think now with restrictions reducing slightly, we're going to be able to. I think gyms are open now anyway, aren't they? I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
And I think because I've obviously been in England boxing, they've got championships dates, so there's something there to aim for. There's light at the end of the tunnel. There's motivation there instantly. So hopefully people can get involved, and it'd be great to see that.
So one final question then for people that now want to continue to follow your journey, or have never had the opportunity to see what you're up to on social media. You have got a Twitter account. Could you fire away and tell everybody what that Twitter account is?
Yeah, I think it's just Tony Davis under scroll 81, because the 81 was me old boxing weight, you see. So that was but yeah. And I've got an Insta. If people want to follow I made an Instagram account up as well for basically to record the journey from in Bahrain, and that's just Bahrain National Boxing Coach at Bahrain National Boxing Coach. People can see the journey, what it what it has been from the two and a bit years it's been to what it is now.
So Tony, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and thank you for all the stories, and thank you for sharing everything with me on this episode. And I truly hope everybody really appreciates the time that you've put in, and the stories that you've told. And good luck going forward for the Olympics, and good luck with the coaching, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sean. It's been an honour.